My name is Jonathan Hicks. We're doing adding and subtracting with algebra. Now, if you haven't seen the BODMAS video, the BODMAS with algebra video, go and watch that one first. You need to be familiar with that. But this is how you combine things. Sometimes you call this collecting like terms, but it's all to do with adding and subtracting at the end of the day. It's really fairly straightforward, so I don't want to take too long over this. But there's one thing that can really throw a spanner in the works, as we say, which is minus signs. Minus signs can be the cause of much heartache when trying to do algebra. So I've separated dealing with minus signs, which can get quite tricky, and put that in a separate video. So this one is going to be fairly straightforward. So the concept, if we take an example here, if you have 2x, now remember whenever you see two things next to each other in algebra, it always means times. So 2x means 2 times whatever number x is. So if x turned out to be 5, this thing would be 10. 2 lots of 5 make 10. But in general, we don't know what x is. X could be anything at all. So we add, let's imagine we're adding 3 lots of x. So we've got 2 lots of this unknown number plus 3 lots of this unknown number. And if you find this sort of situation where you've got 2 terms, you remember we talked about those in the BODMAS video, and they're the same kind of term, so this is an x term and so is this one, then you can combine them together. Effectively, you're saying if you've got 2 lots of that thing plus 3 lots of it, then altogether you've got 5 lots of whatever that thing turns out to be. So we're combining or simplifying in the sense that instead of having to write 2x plus 3x, you can just write 5x, which is less writing, and we like that in maths. We like to make things as small and concise, as simple as possible. And that's all you're really doing with collecting. So if you had 5 lots of x minus 2 lots of x plus 7 lots of x, then it's just 5 minus 2, which gives you 3. And then you add 7, which means you've got altogether 10 lots of x. Now I know there's a minus sign here. When I'm talking about the minus signs, I'm kind of mean in terms of negative numbers, and we'll deal with that, as I say, in the next video. But that's the basic concept. If you've got the same kind of terms, you can just combine them all together and work out what you've got, just to simplify it. Now, as I say, this doesn't have any great purpose in and of itself, but this turns out to be really useful later on. This is just one of the tools in our algebra toolbox that we're going to need when it comes to the important stuff like solving equations. So let me give you a couple more examples. If you had AB, remember A is an unknown number and B is another unknown number. But if you multiply these two things together, you're going to get a third unknown number. Yeah? If A was 2 and if B 5, then that's going to be 2 times 5. So this whole thing would turn out to be 10. So it doesn't really matter what it is, but you can treat AB as one unknown thing. It's a term, as we say in algebra. And I might have 4 lots of whatever AB is. And then later on, I might add 3 lots of whatever AB turns out to be. So altogether, I've got 4 lots of this thing plus 3 lots of this thing, so I've got 7 lots of that thing, whatever it is. And again, we've taken something that was quite long and we've just shrunk it down to make it simpler. It's easier to deal with. Let's try something with powers in. So imagine we've got 2x squared plus 5x squared. Well, again, x squared is one kind of term. And if you've got 2 of them plus 5 of them all together, you've got 7 of them, whatever they are. In this case, they're x squared things. But you don't need to worry about what it is. Just you need to remember that you can combine the things together when they're the same. So let me try a couple more slightly more involved examples. If I've got 4 lots of A plus 2 lots of B, and then we add another 3 lots of A and then 1 lot of B. Now I don't need to write the 1 in front of the B. If I've only got 1 B, then it's just B. Yep. If B turned out to be 9, for example, then this would be plus 9. I don't need to write plus 1 times 9. 1 times 9 is just 9. So when you've got one of a letter, you just write the letter. Now, I've got 4 lots of A here. This is an A term. and then 2 lots of b. b is a different kind of term. I can't combine it with the a thing because these are different numbers. I don't know what a is, I don't know what b is. So adding them together, I still don't know what that is. That doesn't help me at all. But I've got 3 lots of a, which matches this one. So the 4 lots of a plus the 3 lots of a would make 7 lots of a. I can combine those two things together to give me that one. And then I can combine the b's as well. If I've got 2 lots of b and I add 1 more lot of b, then that's the same thing as adding 3 lots of b. So all of this simplifies or shrinks down into this. The 4a plus the 3a gives us 7a. The 2b plus the 1b over here gives us 3b. So if you've got different things, you can combine together the things that match. So let's try a harder example here. If we've got 6x squared plus x plus 2x squared plus 3x, then again, although it looks like they're all x's at first glance, x squared is a different number from x. So this is a different kind of term from the x things. So I've got 2x things here and 2x squared things here. So I can combine the x squared things together. 6 lots of x squared plus 2 lots of it give me 8 lots of x squared. 1 lot of x, remember there's a kind of imaginary 1 in front of the x here. You've got 1 lot of x, and then later on you're adding 3 lots of x, so that's the same thing as adding 4 lots of x. And that's how you can combine the things together. You can also do it with numbers. So if I had 2a plus 7 plus 5a minus 2, let's have. So you can combine the a's together. 2 lots of a plus 5 lots of a give you 7 lots of a. And then you can also combine the numbers together. 7 minus 2 would be the same thing as adding 5. Yeah, if we add 7 and take away 2, that's the same thing as adding 5. So again, we can simplify or shrink stuff down just to make it easier to deal with. So the a's combine together, and then the numbers combine together separately. But I can't combine the numbers with the letters because I don't know what a is yet. If I worked out what a was, if a turned out to be 2, I could do 7 times the 2 and then add the 5 to it. But I don't know what a is, so I can't combine these together. You can only combine the things together when they're the same kind of thing. So as I say, we combine the a's, we combine the numbers. So that's why it's really important to spot the different kinds of terms you've got, and then you can combine together the things that match, which, as I say, just makes it easier later on. Right, there's one other thing I just want to point out, sometimes catches people out. And it's to do with this when you've got one of something. So if I've got 5 lots of x and I take away 4 lots of x, well, altogether I've got 1 lot of x. Now you could write 1x. As I say, we never do that, but it's not wrong. Yeah, you've got 1 lot of whatever number x is, but you don't need to write the 1 there, so in general, we don't bother. You just write x. So if you ever end up with 1 lot of something, then you just write whatever the letter is. Yeah, so again, if you've got 9 lots of a minus 8 lots of a, that would just be a. Because 9 minus 8 gives you 1, you've got 1 lot of a. You can think of it as there being a kind of imaginary 1 in front of the a. The 1 is sort of there, we just don't bother writing it because it's not necessary. And then finally, what happens if you've got 4 lots of e and you take away another 4 lots of e? Well, altogether, 4 lots of something minus 4 lots of something means you've got no lots of something. Yeah, if you take away all the e's, then you haven't got any left. Now, you could write 0e, you would never do that in practice, because 0e means 0 times e, and 0 times anything is just going to be 0. So in practice, if everything cancels out, as we say, if we're taking away as many e's as we've got, then you're just left with nothing, and you just write 0. But it's important to have the 0 there. All right, one final example then before we finish. If we had 6p plus 2q minus 6p plus 4q, well, we can collect together the p's, but again, 6p minus 6p it's going to give you 0. So all the p's will disappear. So you can kind of imagine a 0 here. We'll come back to that in a second. You've got no lots of p. Then you've got 2 lots of q plus another 4 lots of q. So altogether that's like adding 6 lots of q. But 6 lots of q plus nothing is just 6 lots of q. The plus nothing doesn't do anything. So actually you don't need to bother writing it. So the answer here would be 6q. The p's have cancelled out. Sometimes what people will do is they'll put like a diagonal line through the ones that cancel. 6 lots minus 6 lots, well, they just disappear in a puff of smoke like magic, because you've got no p's left. All you've got is 2 lots of q plus 4 lots of q, which means you've just got 6 lots of q. That's it. So you don't need to write the 0 here if one of the letters disappears. You would only need to write a 0 if everything disappeared. If it was 2 lots of q and then you subtracted another 2 lots of q, so that cancels with that, in that case everything disappears, but you've got to write something. That's when you'd put the 0 in. So hopefully that's given you a handle on how you collect things together. As I say, go and watch the adding and subtracting with negative numbers video, because that can be a lot more tricky to develop your skills even further before we move on to the next topic.